11 p.m. Central African time, and it's time for us to get into our conversation set for this hour. Question to you this evening: what do you think the relationship between adrenaline and attraction is? Have you ever thought of that? Interestingly enough, I had a conversation with my producer, and she was saying to me, Shayla, adrenaline means fight or flight or freeze. Okay? This is a life dependent critical state. How can you tell me that that factors in attraction? Well, tonight we are joined by Nicki Beivik, who is a professional sex coach dedicated to helping individuals and couples navigate intimacy, desire, and connection. Now, from heart pounding adventures to playful experiments, we will explore the fascinating psychology behind adrenaline and attraction. Can shared excitement reignite passion in a long term relationship? Do couples who dare together truly stay together? Nikki is going to be answering these and so much more. Nikki, join us on the line this evening. Welcome to African Diaries. Let's just get straight into it. I want to gauge the science. Yes? Now, how
Yes.
true is it that adrenaline and sexual arousal are linked?
Okay. Well, it's absolutely. I can hear a repeat of myself. Can you?
No, ma'am. In actual
Okay.
fact, you
Perfect.
can't. Are we good now on
Okay.
your end?
As long as you can hear me, that's fine. So I love this topic because so many couples lose a spark, not from a lack of love, but from falling into routine. And the truth is, what you've hit on is that adrenaline and sexual arousal are very closely linked, because they activate that same part of the nervous system, the one that gets your heart racing, your pupils dilating, your breath quickening. It's the exact same biological cocktail we feel when we turned on. And so your body can confuse desire and fear. So when we do something exciting, whether it's hiking a new trail or going for a cold water dip, or even public speaking, being on the radio, watching a scary movie, you start associating that thrill with your partner, and it reignites that chemistry between you.
Nikki, that's so fascinating. And I'm saying this because you just said our brains can confuse fear
Mm.
and desire. Is this why we have people who identify as adrenaline junkies? Is that perhaps something, does that have any correlation to the statement?
Yeah, I would think it. I would think it does. You know, people live to feel alive. I think that's what we want, and I think that's what sex can give you, is this aliveness. If we can reignite erotic energy that we feel at the beginning of a relationship, that's kind of what we all strive for. But the problem is that at the very beginning of a relationship, you've got this absolute cocktail of neurochemicals flooding through your body, which you can't recreate once you are in a long-term relationship. So how can you do that? Well, that's almost trick your body. Add a bit of novelty. It doesn't have to be major adrenaline. You don't have to go bungee jumping or skydiving every time. But how can you give a little bit of dopamine going? The reward system, that feel good hormones that we need. And the way in which we do that is to allow for novelty. Because remember, we thrive, humans thrive on excitement and adventure and novelty and variety. And unfortunately, often in long-term relationships, we forget about that. And I often say, love is a place we kind of fall into, and it's that safety. You feel connected, you feel close. It's like tracksuit pants, but tracksuit pants are not sexy. So desire is more like a landscape that we kind of need to constantly navigate. And if you navigate that landscape together, where you're constantly exploring new paths, it will ensure that you kind of keep yourself in love. So
Yeah.
think of desire as that excitement that you need, that erotic energy, that aliveness, that that excitement that makes you look irresistible to each other, that's what we have to work at. And unfortunately, we think that it's because we're in love, we don't need to work at desire, but you do.
That's really interesting, Nikki. I want to gauge, does this novelty have to be between my partner and I? And I'm asking because excitement can come from all places. So is it my state of excitement, or is it our joint state of excitement that reconnects us to each other?
I love that question. I think the reality is it's both. So, one way is never going to give you the answer. So go out with a girl, have a fun night. See your partner from across the crowded room and remember what you found attractive about them. Flirt with a bartender and remember how good you are, and come back and bring that into the bedroom, that attitude together. Or you can do things together. So have a date night, but not just dinner and a movie. Do things that are great fun that you used to do when you first met, when you actually used to prepare and think about how you could have a fun date that would end up in having hot sex. When you look at the beginning of a relationship, we work at those dates that we have. So what could you do? Can you go hike together, dance together? Do something that isn't just, do something that gets you both nervous, giggling nervously, karaoke, paddle boarding, something you're both bad at, a pottery class. Because it gives you this shared connection, this newness, something to discover together. But you could also go on your own if that's not up your partner's alley, and then come back and you bring this freshness, this breath of fresh air into your relationship. And you can say, guess what I did today? Guess what I did tonight? You have a fresh conversation. It's not like knowing the end of the story before you've even got there.
Nikki, I want us to explore two facets to this conversation.
Yes.
Right. One is my partner and I engaging in activities that we're perhaps not too familiar with, we're both bad at, and I think that's tangible, right? For everybody,
Yes.
If you say you and your partner should explore, it's just a matter of communication, conversation, and intention.
Yes.
What's more interesting to me is you doing stuff alone. And you gave an example. You said, go flirt with a bartender and then bring that excitement and energy back home, which can tilt towards bringing animosity between you and your partner. So when do we know how to draw this fine line between the search for adrenaline, especially when we're seeking it for ourselves to take back home, and you not overlapsing into something that wouldn't be beneficial for the relationship?
Yes. Okay. So obviously, you obviously picked up on the one kind of edgy thing I gave, but I think the reality is, what I'm trying to say is, if you are in a long-term relationship and you want to take the monotony out of monogamy and for it to really work, I think we need to, I know this is going to be a little bit out there, but interpret our no's more narrowly. So really, when I say flirting with a bartender, I'm not really kind of saying I'm not trying to cross an edge, but it's okay to think other people are attractive. It's okay to be out with your friends and giggle and laugh.
Yeah.
You aren't owned by another person. You still are your own individual. So I'm not suggesting that you go and kind of break your bonds of monogamy, but on the other hand, you can still kind of enjoy who you are and remember who you are before you became a partnership, and bring that into the partnership. And it's a little bit like the art on the walls. We often get so used to seeing the art in our house that we forget to see it.
Sure.
And so it's almost important to kind of see yourself and your partner with fresh eyes. Like I know with myself, I love to see my husband. Sometimes we go out at like a party, and I'll try not to talk to him the whole night because I love to see him mingling and chatting. And I kind of see what I fell in love with 26 years ago, because I'm seeing him like the other people talking to him see him. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say is, when I say flirt with a bartender, let them see you as an interesting person. Other people think you're interesting, and you come home and you are interesting. So I'm not trying to say you have to cross a line. I'm more kind of just saying, let's open up our minds. Let's be the person we want to be, so we can bring that energy into the home without just, so I move away from that tracksuit pants and kind of put on high heels sometimes.
Come on, Nick. I am with you 110%. The voice there of sex coach and relationship expert. This is Nicki Beivik. Nicki, how do we pronounce your surname? I have been staring at that 6-letter surname for quite some time. And I've been...
Beivik.
Beivik.
But my brand is actually Ask Nicki. Because I love people to ask me questions. You know, I'm trying to kind of open up the conversation around sex. I want to help people rekindle connection, upgrade your sex life, you upgrade your whole life. You know, that's kind of my passion. Inspire people, empower people to kind of have the best sex life you can possibly have. Because when you have a great sex life, you have a great life, and vice versa. It's like this pleasure loop of satisfaction.
The voice there again, and she's saying, listen, if you want to ask Nicki, now is the time. Find us on WhatsApp, +27 634069126. Moreover, you can head over to her website, asknicki.co.za, and engage and interact with her, specific to relationships and, of course, the practice of sex. Listen, you and your partner want to strengthen those bonds, your intimacy, your relationship beyond you being good to one another everywhere else. This is the platform for you to head over to and engage with. Yes,
and
Nicki.
if you follow me on Instagram, it's ask.Nicki, Nicki. I give lots of tips and tricks, and I kind of, is it normal? I tell you that, spoiler alert, it probably is. You know, I give Spice Up Saturdays, ideas to spice things up. So go onto my Instagram and get lots of ideas and hopefully heat up your sex life and your whole life.
Nicki, let's talk about that balance, right?
Yes.
A lot of people think that they have great sex. They are comfortable. They're saying, listen, we reach the end and everybody's smiling. But because it's repetitive, like you said, you see this painting on your wall and it was beautiful at first. The first 5 years, it was immaculate. And then 15 years down the line, you're like, yeah, that one painted it and it came from wherever. And so for people who are thinking to themselves, it doesn't feel like anything is wrong with intimacy. However, I'm just bored by it or I'm not enjoying it anymore. What would you suggest is the issue? Is it familiarity? Is it the fact that there isn't that spark? Are there other factors that we're maybe not cognizant of as well?
Yeah, I think the reality is that we don't put in the work required. Anything that is worth anything takes work. So if you want to kind of bring this excitement into your life, you have to focus on it. Intimacy is an important aspect of your life, then you need to kind of schedule it in. And also change things up. Now, it doesn't have to be a massive change. You know, I often say swap sides of the bed. Put your feet where your head should be. Have sex in another room. Just those little changes reap massive relationship dividends. And just kind of changing any kind of aspect up and fantasizing and sharing your fantasies. Communicate. We need to communicate. Communication is the bedrock to making your bedrock. You know,
okay.
You know, we need to be able to communicate with each other. What are our needs? You know, I love the way you do this, but can't we try something else? Our bodies are changing. We, as women, our particularly it depends on where we are in the time of the month, if we're in menopause, where we are in the arousal arc. So it all changes, and we need to make adaptations so that we can all kind of be enjoying what we want. Because most people aren't having bad sex. They're just having boring, dull, repetitive sex. And that's what you have to say, I am fed up of. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to feel alive, and we are going to have this shared aliveness and reignite the erotic energy between us. And let's do that together by communicating, being creative, because creativity in the bedroom is so rewarding, and yet no one thinks of it like that. And then collaborating to get that. I'm actually bringing out a book, and it's on my sex equation, which is E equals MC cubed. Eroticism equals mindfulness, communication, creativity, and collaboration.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So, Nicki, I want to step into the headspace of the conservative, very meek, very timid kind of individual in that department. You know, somebody who, I mean, let's look at the African context. We are not as robust in conversation when it comes to sex, right? It is a personalized thing for the homestead. It's not a discussion. We're not trying to create an understanding, you know, for the most part. It's only newer generations who are willing to engage conversation concerning that. And so let's perhaps give them tips. You said be creative, but in an environment where you are called to be a conservative, creativity is very limited, you know, so maybe it's not going to be the wild things. Maybe it's the little nuances, right, that need to change. Perhaps help us there. What are some of the nuances that mom and dad who are in their late 50s from Togo can practice now that would reignite their connection?
Okay. So it's perhaps kind of sitting and doing something together, holding hands, kissing for longer than 6 seconds. You know, kissing somehow goes in long-term relationships. And I'm not talking about just that peck. I'm talking about proper, passionate kissing. And the thing about a long kiss, a proper kiss, it releases oxytocin. So if you can start kissing again, you awaken all different parts of your body and you bond. So that's just like a normal start. A 20-second hug also releases oxytocin. Maybe trying to have a bath together or a shower together. Maybe saying things that you've loved sharing in the last 20 years. What sparks something for you? What was hot for you? I mean, it's all about practice. Communication requires practice. So you don't have to start with, oh, this is what I want. You can say, I've changed. We've grown older. We're still together. But we're young enough to be together for a long time. What can we do that can kind of see us into this new way? Our kids are now grown up, perhaps moved out, have their own kids. So now we can find each other again. What should we do? What can we do together? And maybe even that, do a class together. Watch something together, but get invested, not separately completely. You know, that's the problem with just getting lost in our phones. Even looking into each other's eyes. Is anything resonating?
Absolutely. Nicki, I want to talk about insecurities.
Yes.
Right. I do think that part of the problem is an insecure state. You know,
yes.
If one is very secure in who they are and the other isn't, it does pose as a threat. Can we talk about the importance of assurance? Because there's another factor, which is aging, right? And women care more
Yes.
about aging than men do, and so you start feeling like your lumps and your bumps are not as attractive. So I'm not attractive. So maybe we shouldn't engage in intimacy like that. Maybe I can just give you a peck on the cheek and we can move on with life because I don't feel like I carry the necessary sex appeal to attract you. And so
Yes.
perhaps let's address that the state of
Okay.
insecurity.
I love that because, I do a lot of talks for menopausal women, perimenopausal and menopausal women whose bodies have changed, who kind of often don't even recognize themselves anymore. And I say you have to focus not so much on what your body looks like, but what your body makes you feel like. And I do think one thing about aging, you realize that this is the one and only body we have. And that at some point we have to accept that this is me and I can't do more than what I've got, but I can feel and I can feel pleasure and I'm entitled to pleasure and this body can give me pleasure. And so I think in loving partnerships, we obviously worry, do you still find me attractive? Am I still attractive? And I think reassurance isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, connection, curiosity. Reassure them that you love them, that you notice their efforts. Touch them, not only when it's sexual, because that's often a problem, is that, particularly with women, is that we feel we never touched when it's not for a sexual reason. So rather touch affectionately, not necessarily only sexually, and open up that door that sexuality can still arrive through. Saying I love you, showing that you love them through micro moments, eye contact instead of scrolling when they're talking. Relationship gurus, the Gottmans, they have that love lab where they've actually kind of researched successful couples, and successful couples pay attention to each other. So it's like a ratio of 5-1. So that means like when they're talking, you listen. When they say, look, did you see our granddaughter do this? You say, oh, yes, or did you see the bird outside? Oh, yeah, I love the colors. So it's just hearing what your partner is saying, initiating affection, a kiss, a hug, a hand on the back, saying thank you for the small things. Remember something they said a few days ago. Just always knowing that that you matter and I choose you and I choose you over and over again. And all that pays relationship dividends and then pays into the bedroom. Because when we feel safe and seen and loved and connected, then we want to connect sexually because we feel safe.
And then lastly, Nicki, I think for the most part, there's an assumption that women are the only individuals who are insecure, right? Because we will want to express this, maybe not to our partners, but to our friends, to our family, in the way we carry ourselves. Whereas with men, you won't receive that level or that caliber of expression. And so let's talk about men. Do they get insecure about intimacy? Apart from general health problems, are they issues of insecurity that maybe women should be on the lookout for when it comes to interacting with men?
Yeah, the thing is, insecurity, it's for both men and women. I think men feel different in a different way. Particularly as they age, they can worry about performance, relevance. Obviously, when we think sex is penetration, and the penis is the main star of the show, and then as they age and it doesn't perform as well, their bodies change and their erections might not be as strong or as reliable, and recovery takes longer. Then they often have this like unspoken pressure to always be ready and always be virile, and that's like a heavy, heavy expectation to live under. And then they often withdraw because they're too ashamed to say, am I letting you down? But actually, remember, a woman's desire, a woman's pleasure does not come from a man's penis mainly. It comes from our clitoris. So if we could have this open communication, we can share where our pleasure comes from, then it takes the pressure off the man, and we can find other ways to get pleasure and other ways to fuel our pleasure. So it's helpful to remember that we're not the only ones changing. We both need to feel desired, valued, and safe to stay connected. And I think it's very important. That's why, often men are the ones who have to always initiate. And that's quite a heavy role to have to bear all the time, to always be the one who's putting themselves out there for rejection. So I think we need to be human. We need to sometimes put ourselves in our partner's feet and say, and share it with each other. This is how I feel. How do you feel? Keeping that communication open. And it's a muscle that we just need to practice to work on, because it's not easy to sexually communicate. But if we can do it in the bedroom, you can communicate anywhere.
Absolutely. Nicki, we will leave things there. Of course, for those who are interested, they'll head over to your platforms, your website, Instagram, and definitely ask Nicki, because you have all the info.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I've so enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have too.
We are educated, inspired, and in all honesty, this was a beautiful one. The voice there of sex coach and relationship expert, that is Nicki Beivik, joining us this evening. It is 20 minutes to midnight in Central African time. I promised you date ideas, and that is what will be coming your way shortly.